Hello, just enjoying the upteenth cup of tea of the day. Now I'm gonna put some light on here. See if I can get some extra light here a minute. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. Got some overhead lighting. As you can see now, I have my mortarboard on. So I'm going to give you a little lecture. The title of this video is, How Do I Know What I'm Listening To? Because I was thinking the other evening, or when I'd made the video on logging your stations and why you log them and how you log them, I thought, I'll make a video on how do I know what I'm listening to, because that's one of the fundamentals of shortwave listening, is knowing what you're listening to. And how do you find out what you're listening to? So I'm going to tell you a little story to illustrate a point, and hopefully point you in the right direction to help you find out what you're listening to. Because it's difficult when you're a beginner, finding your feet. You don't know where stuff is, where to look for particular stuff. You tune around and you hear something, you think, oh, what's that? So hopefully I'll point you in the right direction, give you some ideas as to how you can go about identifying the stuff that you're hearing. So I'll tell you a little story anyway. I was on 189 kilohertz Longwave this morning, which is about as low as you can go, really. Well, you can go down to naught. My Yaesu FRG7, I think that goes down to naught. Nothing down there. I got a machine here that'll go to a few kilohertz, and it'll allow me to pick up the echolocations of bats. They're down there. And I think nuclear submarines transmit down on a few kilohertz, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I'm on 189 kilohertz Longwave, and I hear a station playing music. Coming in sort of, okay-ish. And the first thing that instantly smacks you in the head is, I wonder what that is. So the first thing I did was went on my phone to my long-wave, medium-wave frequency guide, which you can download. There's various frequency charts you can download for free. You print them off on your computer or download them on a PDF thing. And I'm sure most of you out there have either got an iPhone or a computer. You've either got one or the other, but you can do it. I've just done it on a PDF on my phone. So anyway, I go to my long and medium wave frequency chart, look at 189 kilohertz, and it lists two stations, one in Sweden and one in Iceland. Pretty comprehensive list, I gotta say, pretty good list, what you can download. I'm sure it doesn't list every single station, but it's pretty comprehensive, and it's mostly for Europe, although it lists some North African stations in Algeria, and I think one or two in Tunisia, possibly even one or two in the Middle East, but it's mainly for Europe. I'm thinking at some point I might have a go at getting one of these charts, if I can find one of these charts for North America, which would be useful for transatlantic DX. But anyway, I'm rambling now. I look on the chart 189 kilohertz and two stations, one in Sweden, one in Iceland. So you've got to be like a detective with this, and you're off on the trail now, you see. You've got your first lead. Right. So my next step was to go on the Play Store, and I downloaded an app for Swedish radio. The best app that I could find with the highest rating. So I downloaded that, and I typed in the name of what I got off long and medium wave frequency guide. So I typed that in, pressed it, nothing, didn't recognize it. Oh. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll try one or two of the more sort of popular stations in Sweden. So what I tend to think is, with these things, if the station name has like 1, 2 or 3 after it, blah 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 1 or blah 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 2, I tend to think they're the bigger stations, almost like Radio 1 and Radio 2 in this country. I mean, it's like Algeria, you get chain 1 and chain 2, channel 1 and channel 2. So I did 2 or 3 of them, nothing. Okay. So I then went back on Play Store and downloaded an app for radio stations for Iceland. Same again, typed in the name that I got off long and medium wave frequency guide. Typed that in, pressed it, nothing. So I'll try the 1, 2, 3 trick again, see what happens. So when you go on these radio apps, you type in a name, you get a whole list of things come up. So anyway, I type in or jab blah 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 1. I forget what the name was, but it was something with 1 after it, so I jab it. No, that wasn't a match for what I was hearing, it was something totally different. So then go to the next one, blah 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 2, so jab that, bang, straight in. I can tell you what it was. It was a funny name, Ravraz 2 in Iceland. Now there was a little bit of a time delay between what I was hearing on Longwave and what I was hearing on the internet. It's like, excuse me, cleaning my glasses, it's like if you hear a station on the FM broadcast band and you find the same station on DAB and you play the two side by side, DAB is always a few seconds behind FM because it takes your radio a few seconds to resolve the DAB signal, whereas your FM it's straight through. And it's a similar thing, I guess, with Longwave versus internet. There's a little bit of a time lag, but you can easily see whether what you're hearing on the internet is the same as what you're hearing on long or medium wave, or even shortwave, cover that, shortwave broadcast stations, you do it, same thing. So that was my first station from Iceland, and that's how I found out what it was. So if you're interested in long wave and medium wave DXing, which most of us are, download yourself a frequency chart. That's a good way to start. And like I say, you can cross-reference it by using the internet radio. If you're on, there's also another site, before I go on to something, there's another site called Medium Wave Info. That's a useful site if you want to use that. Or if you're listening to broadcast stations on shortwave, there's a very, very good site called shortwaveinfo.com. That's a very, very good site, and you can use that in multitude of ways. I mean, it'll tell you all broadcast stations presently transmitting in English, or you can look on a particular band, or what's active on a particular band, or you can type in a single frequency and say what's active on that frequency. There's various ways you can use that, but shortwave info, very good. If you're on shortwave and you're not listening to broadcast stations, you're listening to other stuff like single sideband transmissions. Again, what you want to do is get yourself a frequency guide, like what I do got here. I can find my guide. Where's my guide? I can't find my guide. There you go. Sort of stuff. I have pages and pages of this stuff. And also, because I'm a bit of an airband, geek. I have a lot of airband stuff all written down. And the yellow ones highlighted are all the frequencies I've got activity on, which unfortunately is nothing like that at the moment. It's so deadly quiet, or with poor conditions and COVID. But anyway, get yourself a shortwave frequency guide. They're freely available on the internet. That's another good place to start. And the frequency shortwave spectrum, you'll come to find, is chopped up into blocks. It's allocated into different blocks for different things. So you've got blocks allocated to radio amateurs, blocks to civil air traffic, blocks to the military, blocks to marine band, blocks to broadcast stations. And once you know what block you're on, then you have a pretty good idea sort of what you're listening to. It doesn't always go like that, because you can be in a area that's listed as, say, civil air traffic, and as I've done on quite a few occasions, I've been in an area listed for civil air traffic and heard deep sea fishermen talking on fishing boats. So it's not a guaranteed that just because you're in, say, an air band, you're hearing air traffic. But it's a pretty good, reasonably good idea. Gives you a good idea. Something else I was going to say, and I've lost what I was going to say actually. It's funny, it's one of those things that your mind just goes, what do they call it? Senior moment? Senior moment. Another thing you can do is look at other people's videos, other shortwave listeners, because there's a lot of us on YouTube posting videos. So you can look at their videos, look at the list of the videos that they've put up, and see if they've listed anything on the frequency that you've heard stuff on, and see what they say it is. And you may do that for 2 or 3 other listeners, and they all say the same things. You say, oh well, yeah, that's probably what it is, I've been hearing. There's various ways, like cross-reference what you're hearing with other listeners, or you can just ask other listeners. I'm hearing so-and-so on frequency, what is it? Do you know what it is? Do you know what you think it is? There's more than one way to skin a cat. But that's some ideas anyway on how to find out, ascertain what you're hearing or what you're listening to. I'm always open for comments and questions, and anything you want to know or you think I might be able to help you with. I'm always here to help new beginners, new listeners, find the frequency, because it is difficult when you first start out. You don't know where stuff is to. You don't know what you're listening to, what you're hearing. It's all very strange and very new. That's what I was going to say just now, and it just went out of my head. You can get what they call a band plan. You can download a band plan. If you download a band plan, you can see how the shortwave spectrum is chopped up into blocks and what's allocated in these blocks. What I've done is made some little cards here, because I can't remember it all, because I'm getting old and decrepit, you know. And on this one, see, I've listed all the amateur bands, broadcast bands. Broadcast bands I do pretty much know off the top of my head now. Civil air bands. Here's gone in a bit further, because this lists all the frequencies where I might find air traffic in the Pacific. Another one for African stuff, air traffic. Military bands, you see. Marine bands. Anything goes, just odd little bits of the spectrum where there's, you never know what you might hear. Volmut stations. Volmut stations, which are like aeronautical weather stations. Oh, another one for South American air traffic. Asian air traffic. So they're handy to have just for quick reference. Another thing you want to get yourself, which is very handy to have in the shack or wherever you listen to, is one of these. Get yourself a good atlas. Because the amount of times you'll hear place names and country names and island names, and you learn so much by looking through an atlas. I mean, you'll be listening to an air band, and you hear a pilot call, oh, I don't know, Brazzaville. Where the hell is that? So you look it up. Ah, it's in the Congo. Brilliant. I can hear, so tick it off the list. That's one that I can get, Brazzaville. Probably wouldn't get at the moment because conditions, I just can't believe how poor conditions, I'm starting to moan now, I can't believe how poor conditions are at the moment, really. I mean, God, I used to get all sorts, HF airband, I used to get all sorts. Particularly on 11300, I used to get Cairo, Tripoli, Mogadishu, in Somalia, Khartoum, in Sudan, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Used to get all them. 8894 used to get Algiers. Sometimes I'd even get one along from that, Benghazi. Used to hear Benghazi. Or you could go on like 8903 and you'd sort of drop down into Africa, like, what do they call that, Equatorial Africa or something, and you'd hear Brazzaville and N'Djamena and what's the one in Kenya? Nairobi, you'd hear Nairobi. Wonderful, it's absolutely wonderful. Or you could go right down to bottom of Africa, you could get Johannesburg. That's another one you used to get. It's just all deathly quiet at the moment. It's horrible, horrible. And it's a combination of conditions. and lack of air traffic due to the parks going round. I can get, North American air traffic, North Atlantic. I can get some of that. And we used to get planes flying over the Caribbean and all that, It's, God, marvellous, marvellous. Happy days, happy days. Hopefully it'll come back. Now we're on another up curve. We're on a new solar cycle. So hopefully things will go and we'll get back to something like it. But keep listening, because there's still plenty of stuff out there, still plenty of interesting stuff out there. But you've got to work at it, you've got to ferret it out, like I did this morning with Iceland, which was pleasing, a very pleasing catch. So what I'll do now is I'll disappear. I'll disappear, it's war then. I'll disappear and leave you all alone. I'll play a little bit of Ruvraz 2. I don't know how to pronounce that. Ruvraz 2 from Iceland. Anyway, I'll play you a little bit of that. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for your comments. Anything you want to know, just ask and I'll help you with it. If I can, that is. And we'll see you on the next one.